Shalom, everybody. This is Dion Tolly, and I want to get into a little subject tonight that has been nagging me for years. And I think that it's going to ruffle some feathers, as they say. Either way, ask me if I care. This is a situation that people just are in over their head in. They have no knowledge of what they're dealing with. And I think it's time to put it to rest so our people can move on. But anyway, we're going to talk about Egypt tonight. And Egypt is one of those things to where I look around and our people have been doing something that if they read the scriptures has been in our behavior for millennia. I mean, we just can't seem to get over this, this affinity and affection for Egypt. And the Most High is, he's wondering why too, because he's saying that everything that I've sent you, as far as knowledge and culture, as far as accommodations from a land, water and vegetation, he blessed us with everything. And it's just that it's no reason for our people to go there. Maybe it's because it's a way that they can absolve themselves from having to follow and serve the Most High. And it's just another way of forsaking your birthright, just like Esau. It's like, I don't know, most people don't really understand the concept of Esau. And it's as opposed to Jacob, his brother. They were twins. They were born at the same time. One came out first. That's why Esau is considered the elder. That's why the birthright was afforded to him first. But he forsook it. And Jacob didn't hoodwink him out of it. The stories that you have available to you in the scriptures tell you what happened with him and Nimrod, per se. And according to the book of Yashar, he cut Nimrod's head off. And he didn't want his birthright anymore because he thought Nimrod's followers were going to come back and kill him. His soldiers were going to come back and kill him. So he, not knowing that he was fulfilling a prophecy given to Abraham years before. But at the end of the day, he didn't think he needed it, so he sold it. He said, it ain't going to do me no good anyway. And the book of Genesis, because it was basically setting us up for the history that would bring us into the law in terms of Egypt, and Moshe and Abraham is setting up the foundation of the children of Israel. It didn't get into that detail. It covered it in another book. But at any rate, Egypt is the focus of this particular study, and that's the reason why I opened up this door to it. Now look at this. What do we know about Egypt? Let's look at some of the folklore. And we're going to get into tonight. It's like everything that you've ever been taught about Egypt is just not what it seems. And it's because most people choose to read other information, particularly information coming from Europeans and their perception of things, just like what the scriptures say about Esau. It wasn't because he was, a different race inside of his his relationship with his mother and father, as opposed to Jacob and his relationship, were like they were, some kind of cross mixing or adultery or whatever going on. He was saying that twins, and that they would be the progenitor, let me get my language right. They would be the progenitors of two particular races. Jacob would be of the Hebrews, officially the Israelites, and Esau, because he married into the Hittites, he became a part of what we know of as the European culture, before the European culture, as it begins with Turkey and the Turks and the Hittites and the Huns and eventually the Greeks and so on. So at the end of the day, we're going to get into all of these things that let you know that all of this is lore. And what the Most High says about him is fact, because it's all verified in history and what we see today. So this is what we see about him. A lot of imagery. See the imagery? And they extrapolate, our scholars from today, they extrapolate everything they know about Egypt based on these pictures, pictographs, even some of the cylinder stuff that we see is cuneiform, which predates this, mind you. But it's just based on something that's basically outside of the letter system that ancient Paleo Hebrew was. That's what the Most High taught Enoch, and before the flood, Noah, Shem, and all of the men who wrote from, the house of Shem or the house of Noah. It's just that those things talked about the Most High, and the people who were seduced by the fallen angels, the spirits of those, the disembodied spirits from the flood, they were seduced into that, and they chose to write their own language and not use the language of the Most High. That's why the Most High conformed it and split it up to 70 nations, because if you read Genesis and count up all of the progenitors of the table of nations, it comes to 70. But at any rate, this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a culture of people who were of the children of Ham, who were basically family. I hate to get into the cultural thing and then start throwing race into it at this particular juncture, because it's really, you're talking about after the flood, you're talking about brothers and sisters, cousins and family. And when Esau divided it, especially after the Most High had sent all of these nations that didn't, rebel against him in terms of Noah, he sent them again, particularly Nimrod, at the latter end of Noah's life. He sent them after these nations who we know of as the Horites and, the Amalekites and all of these different cultures that were supposed to be the Rephaim, all of these, the sons of Anakim, better known as the Anunnaki, which is a really completely contorted thing. This is all about wars and what you feel about all of these cultures and their ancient history is all based on the winners of those particular conflicts. Because after Noah, all of mankind, all of the sons of Noah who made up the whole world, like I said, brothers and cousins, they were all warring against each other. And it's a shame because it caused all of us to be into a complete set of seditious behaviors that the Most High said that would cause your children and and your grandchildren and all of them to be erased off of the face of the planet. That's why none of these empires are still around. But at any rate, let's get into the biblical aspect of it, because I see all these guys with all these idols on, and you see them with the Ankh and the eye of a sword of Osiris. You know what I mean? And all these different things. And when you see all of this is not necessarily true. A lot of people like ancient Egypt was black, and we're going to find out some things about Egypt. That it may have started out one way, but eventually, as the years went on and the conquest became more prevalent, Egypt became something completely different, as was the rest of the world as it changed from empire to empire. Because in those days, the custom was, I wouldn't say it was a custom, but it was almost like this is just what they did. They would conquer a land and they would bring people over from their country to that land and deport the people who were native to that land back into their lands and become slaves and servants to them. It's just the way it was. That's how I can say that's how we ended up in there, but that's how they managed to keep us in there. But if you get skipping back down to the times of the Assyrians and the Babylonians, that was in full swing by then. 2 Kings 16, 17 tells you how they did it. Go to 2 Kings 25, and you'll see how they did it when Nebuchadnezzar did it with the children of Judah. It's considered the southern kingdom. So this was customary. But at any rate, we're going to go back before all of that. We're going to develop your concept of Egypt the proper way. So I don't care what anybody say. Everything you read about Egypt is wrong. Sorry. And we'll look at it right now. Let's get into what the scriptures say about Egypt from the beginning. All right. And this right here is interesting because it says, now the Elohim said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee. What was he talking about? Well, Abraham's from the land of Chaldees, Ur of the Chaldees. So he's telling them to leave the Ur of the Chaldees and go down. And he says, and I will make thee a blessed nation and bless thee, and I'll make your name great, and thou should be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. This is the concept that the Christians and the Jews go on based on their usurpation of the heritage of Israel. And they think that this is the reason why they haven't been touched yet. It's because of this thing, that if the children of Israel, which is deception, because if the children of Israel are them, forgetting that they're acquiring everything by the sword, where the Most High did it, but it was on a different order, but we were supplanting nations. And the Most High was with us to where none of those nations win. When your name was called for you to get uprooted out the land, it was just nothing you could do because the Most High was on our side. And until we fell out of right standing with him, that was the case in every nation and every conflict we ever been in. Well, anyway, he said, "They go and curse them and finishing this, curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." And if you look at the days of David all the way to the end of Solomon's, that was the case. The world where there were no wars on the earth between those 80 years, except for the wars that David did. And that was bringing the kingdom of Israel to becoming the nation that it was, with the Most High and the Ark of the Covenant and the place where he placed his name there in Jerusalem, where his spirit abode. This is all history. And he said, now, so Abraham departed. He left the Ur of the Chaldees, and the Elohim spoke to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Haran is an area over there near Syria, Lebanon, below Turkey, around that area. And he says that, and Abraham took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that had gotten, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, which I'm assuming that's servants and family members or whatever, were not his blood family, but basically servants, because we know that to be the case because when Abraham went against the armies of Nimrod and Chedorlaomer, he had 378, I believe, servants with him, and went out and kicked the army of 100,000 or so men. So the Most High with you, ain't nothing they could do to stop you. That's just the way it is. Anyway, and America gonna see that. And anyway, I digress. And they went forth to go in the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. And Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Elohim appeared to Abraham and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar, who appeared unto him. All right. Now, this is just at the very beginning of when the Most High took Abraham out of the Ur of the Chaldees, and he brought him to the land of Canaan. And in this sojourn, and he said, he removed then from thence unto a mountain unto the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Elohim, and called upon the name of the Elohim. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And there was a famine in the land. This is why I'm kind of like skipping ahead of myself in my reading. He said there was a famine in the land. And Abraham went into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass when he was come near into Egypt, he said to his wife, Sarah, behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look at. I know thou art a fair woman to look at. I hate these English the way they write. Anyway, Therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abram was coming to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. And the princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh. And when the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he asses and manservants and man servants and she asses and camels. And why sayest thou, she is my sister? So might have taken her to me to be wife. I don't know why my tongue is all dried up. Now therefore, behold thy wife. Forgive me, folks. Take her, let me slow it down a little bit, and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they went away, and his wife, and all that they had. Now, I want to go to the fact that, first of all, he says that he came in, and the princes of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Now, that right there tells you right there, at this particular time, Egypt must not have been that populated. It's like me, if I was to go into a popular place like New York, you think that me having a pretty woman with me, with the way that New York is populated, especially if you're going by today's standards, you think that the governor or the mayor of New York would find out about it just because of one woman coming into New York that was attractive to look at? So it must not have been a lot of people, and that was news. Follow what I'm saying? And his name was Pharaoh. And I'm going to go back to where this term comes from. But let's continue to 13 so we can build some more background. He said, now Abram went up to Egypt, he, his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Nimrod gave it to him from the book of Yah, if you ever get a chance to read it. And he went on in his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, and unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of Elohim. And Lot went also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. He goes back, you got to remember, Lot goes back to before Moab and Ammon, and he goes back before, at the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. That's where he went. This is the beginning of him leaving Ur of the Chaldees. Well, anyway, the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, let therefore be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. And I will take the left hand, and then I will go to the right. And if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld the plain of Jordan. And it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of Elohim, which would have been the Garden of Eden, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Now let's get into this a little bit deeper. Now let's go back into the beginning of Abraham. Let's go to the book of Yah. And it tells you where it don't give you an idea how it began, but it'll give you an idea of this had to have been the very beginning, because all of the things we hear about these third and fourth and fifth dynasties, that's all a bunch of malarkey. It's a bunch of nonsense, garbage. That is not history. All of those, they have only thing they got to go by is the Valley of the Kings and the things that they see there. And like I said, those were built there by the winners. And as we'll see in this study, that Egypt was very rarely, other than probably this time, when they were ruled over by actual Egyptians. It was just the facts. Egypt was ran by every empire in the world. Egypt was a part of it. That's the Assyrian Empire, Babylonian Empire, Persian Empire, Greek Empire, Roman Empire, and now the American Empire. Don't get it twisted. In those days, he said there was in the land of Shinar. We know Shinar from our last study. If you learned about the Sumerians, we got into that. I encourage you to see that video. Covers a lot of areas as far as history in the Sumerians. He said in those days there was in the land of Shinar a wise man who had understanding and all wisdom. Why? Because he was a Shemite. He was of the descendants of Shem. And of a beautiful appearance, but he was poor and indigent. And his name was Richion. And he was hard set to support himself. And he resolved to go to Egypt, to Osiris. We call it Oswiris, Oswiris, but this is Osiris, son of Anam, which we know of as who? Ammon-Ra. This is Osiris and Ammon-Ra. And he says to show the king his wisdom. They weren't even pharaohs then. There were kings in there then. That's how early the scriptures go back. He said to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might show favor in his sight, to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Richion did so. And when Richion came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king, and the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the king of Egypt. For it was then the custom of the king of Egypt that he went from his royal palace and was seen abroad, which means that he probably didn't even live in Egypt. He was seen abroad, meaning there, one day in the year. And after that, the king would return to his palace and remain there. And on the day when the king went forth, he passed judgment in the land. And everyone having suit came before the king that day to obtain his request. I tell you, it wasn't a whole lot of people. So all this third, fourth, old dynasty, shut up. Nonsense. Because right here, Abraham's alive. You got to remember Abraham, and this is the time when Abraham is when we're in Genesis. This is the time where they get Hagar. This goes into all of these stories were happening to where they talk about how this predates Egypt, predates the Most High and his stories in terms of the Israelites. No, it doesn't. If Abraham was Noah's great-grandson, or Shem's great-grandson, I guess he would be Abraham's great-great-grandson. I think he was fourth generation from Shem, Abraham. He had him, his father Terah, then Eber, then Arpachshad, then I think it was Yoktan, and no, I think Arpachshad is it. Arpachshad, it's son of Shem. So you're talking 4, 5 generations. So that's nonsense. Predates nothing. Abraham was given Hagar, who his son Ishmael is the father of the Ishmaelites. That's how early the stories go back. Don't y'all people listen to yourselves? That sounds so stupid. Hagar gives birth to the Ishmaelites or the Arabs through his son Ishmael. But let's get back into the story. Now, Osiris. Now, let's look at that first, because I went down there for a reason. See this Ammon. This is where we get the Ammon-Ra. See it? Ammon, king of Egypt. He said was a major ancient deity who appears as a member of the Hermopolitan Ogdad. Hermopolitan what? Hermes? Of the fallen angels? You'll see why the Most High calls this place evil. Ammon was attested from the old kingdom together with his wife Amenet. His oracle was Cy Oasis, located in western Egypt near the Libyan desert, remained the only oracle of Ammon throughout, which in the 11th dynasty, 21st century BC, Ammon rose to the position of patron deity in Thebes by replacing Montu. Initially, possibly one of the 8 deities is the Hermopolite creation myth. Hermopolite, that's what they mean. His worship expanded. Creation myth. See, they was given all of the authority, not many hundreds of years removed from the flood, mind you, when these people were getting into this nonsense because of rebellion. After the rebellion of Thebes against the Hyksos, which just means foreigner, The Hyksos and Manu are the kings of the 15th dynasty of Egypt, and their seat of power was the city of Avaris in the Nile Delta. It means foreigner because if you read all of the scriptures and history, they were always in there, which you'll probably hear in this story, where they were always in contest with the Hittites. That would have been the children of Esau at the time. The Hyksos, and with the rule of Ahmose, in 16th century, Ammon acquired national importance, expressed his fusion with the sun god Ra. See this nonsense? Ammon-Ra, alternatively spelled Ammon-Ra, like this one is. That's how it is spelled with the O-M-M, but they just inverted the M and N. See that? Ammon. Same thing. And he said on his own, he was also thought to be the kings of the gods. So you're talking at the beginning. And Ammon-Ra retained his chief importance in the Egyptian pantheon throughout the New Kingdom, with the exception of the Atenist heresy under Akhenaten. Ammon-Ra in this period, 16th to 11th centuries BC, held the position of transcendental, self-created, creator deity, par excellence. He was the champion of the poor or troubled, central to personal deity. That's like I said, we made him visiting the people one time a year. Visit them one time a year to hear their concerns. This is nonsense. With Osiris, Ammon-Ra is the most widely recorded of the Egyptian gods. So we're telling you just how important he was to them and how futile he was and insignificant he was to the Most High. Ra's name simply means sun. Like most gods in the Egyptian, it's all sun worship. Dome of the Rock, all of this is sun worship. Star of David, all of the religions are basing it right back here. Anyway, like most of the gods in the Egyptian mythologies, gods had multiple names. His additional names were Re, Amun-Re, Khepri, Horakati, and Atum. As the chief deity of the Egyptian, this lets you know that he had everybody in Moses. When we look at Moses and the whole Imhotep, this was a custom to them. They had many names. So Europeans don't think that way. Because Europeans only got the one name, and you identify them by the one name. Even if it's a changed name or a stolen name. But that's another story. As the chief deity of the Egyptian empire, Amun-Ra also came to be worshipped outside of Egypt, according to the testimony of ancient Greek historiographers of Libya and Nubia. I was looking at these long, stupid words. Historians, why couldn't you just say that? Libya and Nubia. As Zeus Ammon and Jupiter Ammon. And the two M's kind of related to Ammon, to where this would have been after that when the Greeks come into play. Then that would make sense. Wow, that's deep. I just learned something. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject, so I'm starting to think about outside of what we're dealing with here. Forgive me. Well, anyway, that's deep, though, because Zeus and Ammon and Jupiter, these are all the fallen angels that when you read the book of Enoch, this is where we get the the situation where I always told you that, if everything in terms of our culture comes from the first culture, which would have been Egypt, in terms of, you know, a culture that would spread not just rebellion, but the paganism and the worship of demons and dragon, to where it became a religion and a way of the state. It was the first one to really do it that way, to where they was basically a state ran by, because it was just, all over the place as far as one empire, and they would go to war and they would change empires. And I can imagine it was because of it having, like scripture says in 13, he says he went down to Egypt, and he says that it was well watered there. Let me show you where it tells you. He says that it was well watered everywhere, like the land of Egypt. And it's crazy because when you look at Egypt, it's a desert. This is no longer here. Sumer and all of those places are all gone. Mesopotamia was supposed to be the land between two rivers, the most fertile place on earth, the Fertile Crescent, as they call it. Not today. Most High don't give none of his blessings. This is the reason why Abraham went down to Egypt in the first place, because the Sumerians were starting to serve the gods of the rebellious, the gods of those people who were basically hybrids, mixing with the fallen angel spirits and all that, and animals and all that crap that we seen of in what we call the Horites and the Anunnaki and all of them guys, the giants. So it's like when the Most High tell you that he's not striving with you, your land, and you ain't getting no blessing, because he said none of those gods can help you that you serve. Let them bring you land. And you can't bring them water and fertility and cattle and all of the things that a land needs to strive if the Most High ain't with you. It's just the way it is. That's why the people who are in there now had to import stuff from all over the world to make that place like it is. Serious business. And yeah, that'll get you by for a minute. That with artificial intelligence and artificial, growing and, greenhouses and all of these different things that you learn from it. But the quality of the food, as we could see from how many people got cancer over there, as well as here, we're all missing something with all this technology. We're all shortchanged and losing something. Major parts of the food we eat and the meats we consume because of all of these technologies. Don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. So let's get back to the story of Rickion. Now, Rickion, it says, now he resolved to go to Egypt, and Osiris, the king of Ammon, the king of Egypt, which we know of as Osiris and his son, Ammon and his father, Ammon-Ra, to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might find favor in his sight, to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Rickion did so. And when Rickion came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king, and they told him, I read this all right, so I'm going to skip down. Just remember I read that. So let's go down. And he went once on the day when the king came. Remember, he came once a year to visit the people and talk to them. And he passed judgment in the land. And everyone having a suit came before the king on that day to obtain his request. And when Rickion heard the custom of Egypt, and that he could not come into the presence of the king, he grieved greatly and was very sorrowful. So in other words, he felt bad because he didn't have anything to request of him, and apparently he wasn't an Egyptian, which means he was probably black, which I'm assuming he was. And Egypt being Mizraim, which was a son of Ham, which means Cush probably ruled from Ham, or he ruled from Ethiopia, or the land of Cush in those days. That's probably why he wasn't there. And he came there once a year, which kind of gives you that Egypt was basically an afterthought behind Cush. But I digress. Anyway, he said, in the evening, Rickion went out and he found the house in ruins, formerly a bakehouse in Egypt, and he abode there all night in bitterness of soul and pinched with hunger. and sleep was removed from his eyes. And Rickion considered within himself that he should do in the town until the king, what he should do in the town until the king made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. Meaning how he might maintain himself there. And he rose in the morning and walked out and met in his way those who sold vegetables and various sorts of seed, which they supplied the inhabitants, right? And Rickion wished to do the same in order to get maintenance in the city. But he did, I guess maintenance means survival, sustenance, be able to live. But he was unacquainted with the custom of the people, and he was like a blind man among them. And he went out and obtained vegetables to sell them for his support. And the rabble assembled about him and ridiculed him and took his vegetables from him and left him nothing. So they robbed him. And he rose up from there in bitterness and soul and went sighing back to the bakehouse in which he had remained all night there. And he slept there. And the second night. And on that night, again, he reasoned within himself how he could save himself from starvation and devised a scheme how to act. And he rose up in the morning and acted ingeniously and went out and hired 30 strong men of rabble, carrying their war instruments in their hand. And he led them up to the top of the Egyptian sepulchre, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, Thus saith the king, Lion, strengthen yourself and be valiant, men, and let no man be buried here until 200 pieces of silver be given. Wow. I knew this already, but I'm just giving you for a fact, letting you know that this was foul. Lied said the king gave him permission, and he went in there and put some strong men in and said, you can't bury your family unless you pay me. It's the first form of oppression now. And then he may be buried. And those men did according to the order of Rickion to the people of Egypt that whole of that year. And in 8 months' time, Rickion and his men gathered great riches in silver and gold. And Rickion took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men, and he gave them horses, and they remained with him. And he went, the year came round at the time the king went forth into the town, and all the inhabitants of Egypt into the town. See that? It was a town, and it wasn't no big empire like it was later on. This is the beginning. And all the inhabitants of Egypt assembled together to speak to him concerning the work of Rickion and his men. And the king went forth on the appointed day, and all the Egyptians came before him and cried to him, saying, May the king live forever. What is this thing that thou dost do in your town to your servants? Not to suffer a dead body to be burned until so much silver and gold be given. Was there ever the like unto this done in the whole earth from the days of the former kings, yea, even to the days of Adam? See, this is how close they were. They talk about Adam in this conversation to Egypt. You want me to get y'all? Never mind. This is nonsense for y'all to be following stuff that you have no idea what you're doing. Now he says, unto this day, that the dead should not be buried only for a set price. We know it be a custom of the kings to take a yearly tax from the living, but you dost not only this, but from the dead also you exact a tax day by day. So he said, you taxing the living and the dead. That's why you've heard it said that Egypt was always called raiser of taxes. That's what Pharaoh means. Well, anyway, O king, we can no more bear this, for the whole city is ruined on this account. And dost you not know it? And when the king heard that all they had spoken, he was very wroth, and his anger burned within him at this affair, for he had known nothing of it. And the king said, who and where is he that dares to do this wicked thing in my land without my command? Surely you would tell me. And they told him all the works of Rickion and his men, and the king's anger was aroused. And he ordered Rickion and his men to be brought before him. And Rickion, listen to how clever he was, how he played this joker. Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra was an idiot and wicked. And Amun-Ra took Rickion took 1,000 children, sons and daughters, and clothed them in silk and embroidery. And he set them upon horses, 1,000. He must have made a lot of money. And it must have been a pretty much, I guess you're talking about a town, it sounds like it was about 20, 30, 40,000 people there, perhaps. Enough to where, a small city or small town to where everybody is still small enough for everybody to know each other and still enough for everybody to have a little bit of money and a nice economy in it. Well, at any rate, it says that he said that he had, where am I at with the, okay, where am I at? He bought the 1,000. Okay, now here we go. And he said he put them all And he took also a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones, and a strong and beautiful horse as a present for the king. So he figured he was going, shower him with gifts, with which he had came before the king and bowed down to the earth before him. And the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of the king wondered at the work of Rikion. And they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the king. And it greatly pleased the king. And he wondered at it. That's why I said this is a man ain't got no soul and he ain't got no integrity. Because as soon as he got gifts, he forgot about all the stuff he was doing. And when Rikion sat before him, the king asked him concerning all his works. And Rikion spoke all the words wisely before the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the king heard the words of Rikion and his wisdom, Rikion found favor in his sight. And he met with favor and kindness from all the servants of the king and from all the inhabitants of Egypt on account of his wisdom and excellent speeches. And from that time, they loved him exceedingly. So this was some kind of demon, this dude. He used his head, found him away, and he did what he did. And the king answered and said unto Rikion, your name shall no more be called Rikion, but Pharaoh shall be your name, since you did exact tax from the dead. And he called his name Pharaoh. But that name Pharaoh is definitely not because if you're looking at the land, let's look at the word Pharaoh. You know what I mean? That's similar to this word here where we got Farsi, except you take the PH from and replace it with the F. But it's really the land where it was Paran or that whole Mesopotamian area where Rikion came from. Well, that's that area of Panaram or Padanaram. It's where we get the Pharisees from, who were brought in from Babylon, the same area of Shinar. You understand what I'm saying? This is where we get Farsi. It's all the same stuff. Well, anyway, let's go back. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Rikion, Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every king that should reign over them and their seed in Egypt Pharaoh. Therefore, all the kings that reign in Egypt from this time forward were called Pharaoh unto this day, telling you had an evil joker in place in there since day one. Are y'all listening? Since day one. Now let's go back to the scriptures on it. And let's go to 41. Let's go to Genesis 41. Let's expand this a little bit here more. Now it says, all right, let's see if that's where I want to be. Let's go to 34. Now it says and it says, let's go for context. He said, this is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh, what Yah is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there shall come 7 years. This is Joseph talking now. Joseph was put, that's why I considered Joseph and Hotep, because all of the things that you read about that Hotep did, Joseph did. And we know we're dealing with the same time. Joseph and all of this with Hotep was all the way back, or was after, I should say, the introduction of the concept of Pharaoh and how the people that were coming, just like Abraham coming from Shinar, Rikion coming from Shinar. All right? So let's look at this. He's saying now, behold, there shall be 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. And it's because this thing it is established by Yah, and Yah will shortly bring it to pass. Now that therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a fifth part of the land of Egypt 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And in that food shall be for a store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land. So he's showing them how to store up that, that grain mill and all that Imhotep did. They're showing you here that Joseph did it. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the spirit of Yah is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Yah has showeth thee unto all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. And thou art over my house. Okay, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. He said, Pharaoh said to Joseph, for as much as Yah had showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house. And according to thy word shall all my people be ruled. He said, and according to your word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. You see that? He gave him rulership over all of Egypt. That's why you can't find Imhotep's in the Valley of Kings. He left with his people when Moses carried all of them out, carried all of their forefathers, all of the 12 sons of Jacob, they carried them all out of Egypt with him. And he said, Pharaoh took off his ring in his hand and put it on Joseph's hand and arrayed him in the vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. Nobody's even heard of that name out here with all of these different names and all that. Huh? Let's see if that's any different in the Hebrew. Let's see if that's any different in the Hebrew. Zaphnath-Paneah. That's how it's pronounced. Zaphnath-Paneah. Wow. Okay, I got you. Anyway, Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 years of plenteous years in the earth brought forth by the handfuls. And he gathered up all the food in the 7 years which are in the land of Egypt, and laid the food in the cities, and the food of the field which round about in every city, and he laid up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without numbering. For it was without number. And unto Joseph was born 2 sons that year of famine, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. So he married somebody who had I guess he was a priest of their order, worshiping all of them. But what I'm trying to say to you is Osiris and Amun-Ra were regular men who were of the sons, or grandsons, I'm assuming great-grandsons of Ham. Thinking we're looking at matching Joseph's genealogy, or not Joseph, but Abraham's or Abram's genealogy at the time, up into Shem being 4th, 5th generation from him, that you'd imagine that was Osiris. And he complained about that all of the men of the children of Ham and Japheth and Shem were being worshipped, as gods in the land. They wanted the people to worship them as gods because they would have been the royalty, which not realized as you spread out, everybody else was basically royalty too. If all of y'all came from 8 souls that was on that ark, this is crazy. Well, you got to add to that there was other people there also, because you got to remember the fallen angels started them a race of people. So the giants and the Nephilim and the Anunnaki and the Rephidim and all of them guys, they were all people, sons of Anak. They were people. All right, now let's keep going. Now it says, let's go to 47:6. Let's go to 47:6. Genesis tells you the story. I'm just building some groundwork for it. He said, now the land of Egypt the Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are to come unto thee, and the land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brother dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over their cattle. So in other words, when he brought him in there, he gave gave Joseph and his family, the 70 souls that came up in there, he gave them the best land. Think about that. And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of thy years of my pilgrimage are 130 years old. Few and evil have the days of years of my life been, and have not attained the days of the years of my life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrim. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and he went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brother and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, and the best land in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brother and all his father's household with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in the land, for the famine was very sore. So the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For thy money faileth. Because Joseph went and bought, he bought all this stuff from him. And then when the money failed, because there was nothing else to buy, they came back looking for him. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money failed. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks and for the cattle. This is where bartering comes from. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle that year. And when the year ended, when they came unto him the second year, they said unto him, we will not hide from it. We will not hide it from my Lord, that our money is spent. My Lord hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land not be desolate. So they basically came up to him and said, look, we know you ain't on no foul stuff. We know you ain't on no games and shenanigans. So he's saying, we'll sell you, us, and our land to help us live. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. That's how much money he had. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he removed them to the cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not. For the priests had portion assigned to them of Pharaoh, and did not eat the portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their land. Okay, so in other words, just like a custom in there with the Levites in Jerusalem or Israel, whatever was going on, rather it be wars, rather it be everything, the priests they were the council. So they didn't have a say or they didn't have a part in all that. And you couldn't buy their land. Their security and safety and well-being was guaranteed. And he says, Joseph said to the people, behold, I have bought you this day in your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, for the seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for your food of your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in thy sight, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have a fifth part except for the land of the priest only, which became, it was almost like a tithing. A lot of people don't even know this story, and it's right in your face. Jacob lived in the land 17 years. Then he died, huh? Well, anyway, let's keep it moving. Now let's go to 1322. Let's go to Numbers 1322. Right? Numbers 1322. All right. Now it says, now what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there should be wood therein or not, and be of good courage, and bring fruit into the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. So they went up, this is Moses and them, and they searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rahab, as the men cometh to Hamath, which is Syria. And they ascended there by the south and came to Hebron, where Iamin, Sheshni, Talmai, and the children of Anak were. Huh? And this tells you here, all right, Anak, right? Let's look at that. Let's look at that. Right? So they were those long neck guys with a choker on, a collar on, a necklace on. And apparently they had a knock. I guess it means something about their neck. They wore something around their neck, a choker around their neck. Let's go to that one and see what that one's about. It says a necklace as if strangling. Dag. That must have been a tight necklace. They call them chokers, to choke. To fit out with supplies, compass as a chain. But anyway, let's just look at this. Let's look up Anak. Right? Just let you know these are the giants. These are the giants, and these were the giants that were in the land. And it kind of gives you, let's get a little expanded here so you can see what we're doing. So you can see what we're doing. Now, what we did here, let's get out of the Strong's numbers, right? And the Strong's numbers, you can see where he's telling you that these people were the Anakims, where we get the term Anunnakis. You got to remember, everything is lost in the translation. Everything is lost in the translation. We call everything and just jack the name all up. Because this is what Europeans perceive. And being that you're in charge, they all agree that this is what it should be. That's what it does. But anyway, going back to 1322, these were the Anakims. You can see that these were giants. He said the city of Arba, which is Hebron, the city is Hebron. So in other words, this city that we know of Hebron, let's go back to the context. He said, now they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rohab as the men of Hamath, and they ascended to the south and came to Hebron, where Iamin, Sheshni, Talmai, the children of Anak. There were giants there. He says, now Hebron was built 7 years before Zon in Egypt. So this saying this place here predates Egypt. And Zon apparently was the first city. That's what I'm assuming in that story that we just read from Rickion takes place. Okay. Now let's get into some similarities between America and them, because I think I've spent enough time on some background. And you realize that right now, everything ain't what it seems to be. Egypt is nowhere near the civilization that y'all, everything is in everybody's imagination. These were a bunch of demon worshippers. And you could see the kings were evil. He went along with it because the guy came to him with a gift. All right. Now let's look at Exodus 1:8. He says, now Joseph died and all his brethren and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. And remember, we became a people. If you were there 430 years, according to Exodus 12:40, then we became, as it tells you in 12:40, look at what it says here. Let's go there. Let's go there. And then we'll go back. Now it says, now it came to pass after 430 years, even the self-same day, it came to pass that the host of the Elohim went out from the land of Egypt. Now here it goes. It says, and the children of Egypt journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside the children. So they're saying this was 600,000 men. So I figure with the women and children being about the other half, you're looking at about 1.2 million people, at least, assuming everybody had one child. So that's a conservative estimate. And it says, and a mixed multitude also went up with them. Right? And what does that mean? Mixed multitude. Remember, Hagar comes from Egypt, right? And Egypt right now is occupied by what? Let's look at it. Okay, wait a minute. I just passed it. Here it goes. Right? Okay, now let's find that where it says the mixed multitude went up with him. All right? All of a sudden, 430 years. Let me go back. I've passed it. That's why. I'm sorry about that, folks. And a mixed multitude, right? Let's look at that. Right? It says to the web of transverse threads of cloth, a mixture or mongrel race, Arabia, mingled people, mixed people, right? Arab, to braid, to intermix, technically to traffic, as if by barter, to give, to be security, right? So he's basically saying it's the intermix. It's where we get the term Arab from. See that word? Arab. People have no idea what they're talking about concerning Egypt. Now let's go back. Let's go back. Right? Now let's see what he says now. He said, after the children were, and Joseph, he says, and souls came out of the loins of Jacob with 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died and all his brethren and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful. So he's talking about all of this, when they came up in there with 70 souls, they became what I just showed you was about 1.5 million people that were just Hebrew. And the other people that were with them, he said a multitude of them were mixed race, which would have been, in terms of specificity, they were Arabs. And he said, now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. How could he not know Joseph? It's because as time went on and the wars that they had there, if you read the book of Yah, the children of Israel were starting to beef with him because they started to outnumber him. And the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. And he said, come, let us deal wisely with them. They multiply, and it come to pass that when we are faileth in any war, they join also our enemies and fight against us. So get them up out of the land. Therefore they set over them taskmasters to afflict them in their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses, which I believe are the pyramids. That's just me, though. And they were more afflicted them, and they more afflicted them the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. That's when you're treating them bad. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and brick, and all manner of service in the field. And their service wherein they had made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, and the name of one was Shiphrah, the name of over Puah, the name of the other Puah. And they said, when we do the office of the midwife to a Hebrew woman and see them on the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if he a daughter, then she shall live. And the midwives feared God, and they did also the king of Egypt and commanded them, but saved the children alive. And the king of Egypt called the midwife and said to them, why? But you see what he said? They feared the Elohim. They remembered Joseph, even if this new king didn't. Why have he done this thing? And why have he saved the children alive? And the midwife saved the Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as Egyptian women, for they are lively, and they are delivered eerie. The midwives come into them, and they delivered eerie. The midwives come in unto them. Therefore, Yah dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed eerie. What do you mean by ear? Let's look at that so we get an understanding. Right? All right. He said, and they dealt ear with him. He said it means terem, which means to interrupt or suspend. You know what I mean? So they were able to basically disrupt what they were trying to do. So then he got into a thing where they just turned up the heat. He said, and it came to pass because the midwives feared God that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. Now let's look at what Yashar says about that since we're there. Right? Let's go to what he says about let's see if that's in there. Nope. Pot. Okay. All right. All right, let's watch that one. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Now he says, when Abram went down to Egypt, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, saw Sarah's wife and took her for a wife. Now he goes through it, he prayed for them. And Laban is Syrian. Let's see if he takes them down there. And he says now, after which he ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt in order that they may, that through their virtue, the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. So this is what he heard now. Oh, this is going back to Abraham, where he says that Job the Uzite. Job the Uzite. So in other words, they're telling the story. Now let's keep going because this is integral to the story. Forgive me, folks. Surely Pharaoh the former, your father's father, raised Joseph, the son of Jacob, above all the princes of the land of Egypt when he saw his wisdom. For through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from Pharaoh. After which he had ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt in order that through their virtue the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now therefore, if it seem good in your eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. This is when they're talking about them trying to kill Aaron is born. So he's talking about when Aaron, Moses' brother, is born. So we're in the right place. Now it says now the king said unto Balaam, what shall we do unto Israel? No, let me go back. Right? He says, after the king of Chittim, this is Roman and Mycenaean, where Balaam was deal. All of these guys were connected because the earth wasn't quite as populated with billions of people as it was today. And they were able to move around especially if you were of affluent of any kind. If you had any kind of influence. And let's go back to where we were about where they were reading with Job. Here we go. Now he says, now Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro. This is Moses' father-in-law now. He was in Egypt. Think about it. He was king of Midian, went to Midian, same guy. He was in Egypt dealing with Pharaoh and them before Moses even grew up. Moses wasn't even born yet at this point. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, he was angry with him, and he rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. Why was that important? Because Joseph's stick had power with it. And the king said to Job the Uzite, Job from the land of Uz, who had all those woes come upon him, now you're going to find out why he had all those woes come upon him. What say you, Job? And what is your advice respecting the Hebrews? And Job said to the king, behold, the inhabitants of the land are in your power. Let the king do as it seemed good in his eyes. So in other words, Job said, do whatever you want to do with him. He ain't care to him. Most High held him accountable for it. And the king said to Balaam, what did thou say? Balaam, speak your word that we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, will they be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. He said, for if you think to lessen them by flame and fire, you cannot prevail over them. For surely their Almighty delivered Abraham, their father, from Ur of the Chaldees. And he's talking about a fire that Nimrod threw Abraham in as a child or as a young man. And if you think to destroy them with a sword, surely Yitzhak, their father, was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. That's what he was about to sacrifice him. And if hard and rigorous labor you think to lessen them, you will not prevail even in this. For their father Jacob served labor and all manner of hard work and prospered. Now, therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which you will prevail over them, from which you should not depart. If it please the king, let him order all the children which shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water. For by this canst you wipe away their name, for none of them, nor of their fathers, were tried in this manner. And when the king heard the words of Balaam, the thing pleased the king, throwing babies in the water. This is the Nile River then. And the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be ordered and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, which is very evil, that every child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called all his servants, saying, go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing, and Pharaoh commanded, they cast their male children into the river. And some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, it's causing families to break up, much like abortions right now. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their children, they went to the field to bring them there, and brought them forth in the field, and left their children upon the field and returned home. And Elohim had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them. See that? That's one thing Balaam couldn't see. And he sent one of his ministering heavenly messengers, an angel, which were in heaven, to watch each child in water, to anoint and swab it, and put it in its hands 2 smooth stones, one in which he sucked milk and the other honey. And he caused his hair to grow to his knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it and cleave to it through his compassion for it. And when you see that he built a cocoon for him. And when Yahweh had compassion over them and had desired to multiply them upon the face of the earth, he ordered his earth to receive them, to preserve them there to the time of their growing up. And after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like herb of the earth. and grass of the forest. And they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with him. Listen, y'all hear me? You can't play with the Most High. And the babes of the children of Israel were upon the earth like herb of the field through Yahweh's free and unmerited pardon and favor to them. And when all of Egypt saw this thing, they went forth, each to his field of yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed it up as one plows the earth, and when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel. So the children of Israel increased them. They tried to plow it up so they could kill them. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babies of the children of Israel. And when they sought and found one, they took it from their mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with his mother. So a few of them got through. Thus did the Egyptians do to the Israelite all the days. And we could see when the Most High got them back, when the Most High set the plagues on them. So many people died in that. But let's keep moving. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 12. To Deuteronomy 6, I think. I want to go to Deuteronomy 6. Let's go to Deuteronomy 6. Now he says, let's see. He says, now, and the houses were full of all good things, and which thou fillest, and all the wells digged, which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees, which thou plantest not. And when thou shalt have eaten and be full. Let's go to context, because I feel like I'm reading y'all into something and y'all don't understand what the context is. He said, the greatest commandment. Now, these are the commandments, the statutes and judgments which your Elohim commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land where you go to possess it. So the Most High started dealing with them about the land that they were about to possess, right? And preparing them for it anyway, even though most of this generation didn't make it in. He said, beware thou, lest y'all forget the Elohim, which brought thee forth out of the land, from the house of bondage. That's what Egypt's name, and that's what this name meant. Because the name was named after Mizraim at the first. You following what I'm saying? Now let's go to 1 Kings. So this is letting you know that this is the same thing. This is the reason why this is such a, when it comes to Deuteronomy 28, he will return you back to Egypt by ships, by way I've spoke to thee. He means this in terms of Egypt by this title, the house of bondage. For us, this was the house of bondage, America. You know what I mean? I'm on the video. Anyway, 1 Kings 8:65. Let's go to 1 Kings 8:65. Let's go to 1 Kings 8:65. Right? He said, now at the time Solomon had a feast, and all Israel with him, and a great congregation from the entering of Hammon unto the river Egypt, before their Elohim, 7 days and even 14 days. This is when the Most High had brought the sacrifices. And he was saying that Solomon had offered sacrifices in there. And he says that at this time, and the reason why I'm showing you this is that he's telling you from the river going into Syria all the way into the Nile River, this was the land that Israel occupied in them days. And that's not that little strip that's the size of New Jersey today. So these particular borders that he gave him, where he said that he's going to give him a covenant with him, saying that this seed I will give you from this land, from the river of Egypt into the great river, the river Euphrates. All them Canaanites were there. And that's what Jacob named, as far as supplanting. These are the people who he kicked out and supplanted. He pulled them all up by the roots. Rephaim, those were the giants. Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, Jebusites. Okay? Now let's look at Let's look at some prophecies and close this out because I wanted to get to the point before I get so we can get into the understanding that Egypt is nothing like you think. Let's go to 19 book. Let's go to the book of Isaiah. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 19. Right? And let's go to, he said, now the burden of Egypt, behold, the Elohim rideth upon a swift cloud and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved out of his presence. So this is after all this is done, where all of the wars, all of the stuff that happened, we done got delivered from them. They started going back into the old thing by having the king of Assyria and the king of Babylon ruling over them. You got to remember, Isaiah walked 3 years butt naked in Egypt to warn them that this is the way Nebuchadnezzar was going to carry y'all out captive. Now listen to what he's saying about him. He said, now this is an oracle concerning Egypt. He said, as the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud and shall come into Egypt, the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. That was another thing that was given to Ishmael. Every man's hand will be against his brother. And the spirit of Egyptian shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord. That's the Israelis today. And a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Elohim. And the waters shall fail from the sea. Think about that. River Egypt is a shadow of its former self. And the river shall be wasted and dried up. And they shall turn the rivers far away. And the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up. And the reeds and flags shall wither. And paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brook shall wither, be driven away, and no more. And the fishers shall mourn. And all that cast angle into the brook shall lament. And they that spread nets upon the water shall languish. Moreover, they that work in fine flax and they that weave networks shall be confounded. And they shall be broken in the purposes thereof. All that make sluices and ponds for fish. Surely the princes of Zon, that must have been that capital city back then, before Alexandria. He said, princes of Zon are fools. And the counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh will become brutish. How say we unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise and the son of ancient kings? Where are they? Where are the wise men? Let them tell me now. Let them know what the Elohim of hosts has purposed upon Egypt. The princes of Zon are become fools. The princes of Naph are deceived. That's why I think the Valley of Kings and all of those, with all that pyramids and all that crap, they change it to, I don't know what they changed it. Anyway, he says, they have seduced Egypt, even they that are the stay of the tribes thereof, meaning even those that are originally ethnically Egyptian. The Lord hath mingled the perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. He said, in that day Egypt shall be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Elohim which shaketh over it. And the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Elohim, which he hath determined against it. You understand where I'm going with this? Let's look at Isaiah 23. He said, in the year Tartan came to Ashdod when Sargon, king of Assyria, sent them. This is around the time of King of Syria. This is how it's showing you that how everybody of around the empires of the world all ruled over Egypt and fought against Ashdod. And at the same time, the Elohim by Isaiah, the son of Amos, saying, go, loose thy sackcloth from around thy loins, meaning your pants from around your butt, and put off the shoe from thy foot. And he did so, walking naked and barefoot. And unto the Elohim said my servant Isaiah, I walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and wonder unto Egypt and Ethiopia. So shall the king of Assyria lead away Egyptian prisoners and Ethiopian captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. And he said, they shall be afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia, their expectation, and Egypt, their glory. So that's funny about how Egypt was their glory, but Ethiopia was their expectation. Meaning that Cush was Kemet was the dominant empire. Truth be told. Well, anyway, let's keep it moving. So they went into captivity. Now he said, now we're going to get into all of this thing happening to that. Let's get into a little bit of how our people act like Egypt, and they're being so enamored in Egypt that they think that Egypt is going to rescue them from things pertaining to the Most High, which is delusional, might I add. So let's look at this. Warning against going to Egypt. You see the title? You see the title when the Most High was showing them the judgment was coming. A lot of them tried to flee to Egypt. Right? So the Most High cut to the chase. Let me cut to the chase myself. And he said, it'll come to pass that the sword which he feared shall overtake you. Okay, let me go back in there. Let me read now. Let me go back. And he says, now, if you will abide in this land, then I will build you, and I will not pull you down, and I will plant you and not pluck you up. For I repent me of the evil that I have done to you. Be not afraid of the king of Babylon, who ye are afraid. Be not afraid of him, saith the Elohim, for I am with you to save you and to deliver you from his hand. And I will show mercies unto you, that ye may have mercy upon you and cause you to return into your own land. So the Most High was offering them that he would deliver them, which he did in 70 years anyway, but it wasn't from Babylon. They came back from Persia, and it wasn't the deliverance. Most High showed Cyrus in a dream that he was calling him his servant, and that he was instructed to raise the money to facilitate the children of Israel that were in captivity to him in Babylon to go back. And facilitated them and gave them all of the provisions they need to do it. Rebuild the temple. You read about it in Nehemiah and Esdras and all that. Well, anyway, let's get into it. He said, and I will show mercies unto you that he may have mercy upon you, and cause you to return to your land, meaning the king of Babylon may have mercy upon you. But if ye say, we will not dwell in this land, neither obey the voice of the Elohim, or Yahweh your Elohim, saying, no, but we will go into the land of Egypt, where shall see no war, nor hear the sound of the trumpet, which means the Feast of Trumpets, which always meant the Most High was about to speak. That was brought about by the days of David. Nor have hunger or bread, and there we will dwell. They was thinking that they was going to get blessed out there. Now, therefore, hear the word of the Elohim, ye remnant of Judah, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel. If ye wholly set your faces to enter Egypt and go to sojourn there, that it shall come to pass that the sword which ye feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt. And the famine where ye were afraid shall follow close to you there in Egypt, and there shall ye die. Meaning that Egypt was already judged. And so shall it be with all the men that set their faces to go to Egypt to sojourn there. They shall die by the sword, and by famine, and by pestilence, and none of them shall remain or escape from the evil which I will bring upon them. For thus saith the Elohim, the God of Israel, as my anger and my fury have been poured out upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so shall my fury be poured out upon you, when ye shall enter into Egypt. And ye shall be an execration and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach, and ye shall see this place no more. Therefore the Elohim said concerning you, O remnant of Judah, go ye not into Egypt. Know certainly that I have admonished you this day. So he warned them. So he said, you go into there, you're going to die. And we look at Egypt right now. Egypt is a fraction of what it used to be. This judgment came to pass. Let's keep looking. 44:12. Let's go back into it now. We get where the spirit comes from. Now the word came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews, or the Yehudi, which dwelt in the land of Egypt, which dwelled in Migdol at the Migdol, and at Taphnes, and at Nob, in the country of Pathros, saying, thus saith the Elohim Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. This was after Babylon had invaded. The Most High gave the power unto Nebuchadnezzar, because of their wickedness which they have committed to provoke me to anger. And in that they will burn incense and serve other gods, whom ye knew not, neither they, ye, nor their fathers. Howbeit I sent unto you all my servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, saying, oh, do not this abominable thing I hate. Do not do this abominable thing I hate. He's clear as day with that one. Don't do it. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear to turn from their wickedness, to burn no incense unto other gods. Wherefore my fury and my anger was poured out, was kindled in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, and they are wasted and desolate, as at this day. Thus know, therefore, thus saith the Elohim, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, wherefore commit ye this great evil against your souls, to cut off from you man and woman, child and suckling out of Judah, to leave you none to remain. He said, you're doing it to yourself. You know I'm not going to reward evil with good. In that ye provoke me unto wrath with your works of your hands, burning incense unto gods in the land of Egypt, where ye have gone to dwell, that ye might cut yourselves off, that ye might be a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. Have ye forgotten the wickedness of your fathers, and the wickedness of the kings of Judah, and the wickedness of their wives, and your own wickedness? So we've been down there messing around with them evil Egyptians all the time. And the wickedness of your wives, which ye have committed in the land of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, they are not humbled even to this day. Neither have they feared, nor they walked in my law, nor in the statutes that I have set before you, you and before your fathers. Now he said, therefore I will take a remnant of Judah. He said, I will set my face against you for evil and cut off all Judah. And I will take a remnant of Judah that have set their faces to go in the land of Egypt to sojourn there, and that they shall all be consumed and fall in the land of Egypt, and shall even be consumed by the sword and by famine, and they shall die, from the least even to the greatest. For by the sword and by famine shall they be an execration and an astonishment and a curse. This is why I don't believe anymore that they were going up in there teaching and running things in Egypt. I think they might have been up in there for a minute, but I think that as they were mixing up in there, mickling and rubbing elbows with them, these curses came upon them, and them very people turned on them. And he said he's going to do this so much to where so that none of the remnant of Judah, which are gone into the land of Egypt to sojourn there, shall escape or remain, that they should return to the land of Judah, to which they have a desire to return there to dwell. None shall return, but such as none shall return, but such as shall escape. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, and a great multitude, even all the people that dwell in the land of Egypt, and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word of Yah that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of Yah, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do whatever thing that go forth from our own mouth. So in other words, they basically told them they ain't going to do nothing. And the king of Babylon came in there and did what he did. What he said about they all leaving their butt naked, it happened. Isaiah and Jeremiah were prophesying at the same time. Don't get it twisted. Now let's keep going. Now let's go to Jeremiah 46 and look at Nebuchadnezzar. And he talks about against Egypt. He said, wow, he called them against the Gentiles. And I guess if the Hittites were constantly ruling them, and how you know that? How you know that? If the Hittites were basically the kings of Esau, which merged and took over the land of Sumeria and the land of Shinar, and the Hittites were basically that first kingdom before Assyria. And we know that from history. Let's look at that. Right? I think it's in, let me go to this one. I think it's in the Minor Prophets. Let's look at that. Nope. Go back. Now let's check this out. Here it comes. Right in my face. For thus said the Elohim, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there. And the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Remember I read to you Exodus 1? And a king rose up that didn't know Joseph. That's because he was Assyrian. Bet they don't teach y'all that in y'all schools. That's why I read this from the sources, so y'all don't get, there's no ambiguity, there's no guessing, there's no speculation. Knowledge is power. But not only that, it's favor from the Most High. The more you learn, the more the Most High know you seeking his face. So I'm going to close this out because I went way too long. So let's go to Ezekiel. So let's go down, winding it down to where you see Egypt the way it is today. Let's go to 29. Let's go to chapter 29. And this is a prophecy against Egypt. He said, in the 10th year, in the 10th month, in the 12th day of the month, the word of the Elohim came to me, set thy face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all of Egypt. And speaking to them and say, the Elohim, am I against thee, O Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lieth in the midst of the rivers, which said, the river is my own, and I have made it for myself? Well, let's look at that. Where did he get that from? That's from when Moses went into, let's go back into that. Let's go back into that river, right? Let's find that where he talks about that. That would be in the first 5 books, right? Right, let's look at the way he said to it. He said, a fish that, wait a minute, here we go. Challenge of one river. Where does he say that? He said, in the river are my own. Remember when Moses went into there to talk to him? And he says that, who is your God? And he said, he's the God of all of the earth. He made all of the waters and the rivers. And he said, the rivers are my own. Right? So let's go back to that. Maybe if I add an S there. Nope, I can't. I know it's in Yashar, and I don't want to look for it there, but I could. And he told him that. All right, let me go back. I don't know what I did there. But anyway, that's where it comes from. And I could go it, but I done went way over where I planned on going. And where was I? I'm sorry. I went back into Yashar. And he says that my rivers are my own and I made it for myself. I got to go in there because it's bothered me too much. I had to open up a can of worms for it. Now let's go to where he first goes and speak to Moses, to Pharaoh. Let's go to Pharaoh, where he says Pharaoh, right? Unless I respelled it, I think it's AOA. Okay. Now let's look at that. He said, from there, let's go into where he went into Moses. Moses went into Pharaoh's presence. All right. Here we go. He said, who is this Lord? There we go. Now, he said, Pharaoh said, who is it I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. And thus said the Hebrews have met us, let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice unto the Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said unto him, wherefore, Moses said, let the people go from their works, get you unto your burdens. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land are many, and yet make them rest from their burden. So where did he tell them that it was my land? Okay, wait a minute. Let me see if we go back a little bit. All right, let's go to 5. For since I came to Pharaoh, for he hath done all of these things to thee. All right, well, I'm going to go into Yashar then. What the heck? All right. Okay. Let's go backwards, since we're already there. Let's go backwards. Support, brother. Okay, here we go. I think I passed it. Here we go. He said, in my anger, the king was kindled at their words, and he said to them, but who amongst all the gods of nations can do this? My river is my own, and I have made it for myself. You see that? Most High didn't forget it. You hear that? That's deep. That's super, super deep. So let's go back to it. 29 Ezekiel. Let's go back to 29 Ezekiel. I confirm all things. That way you know that I'm just spitting out words. I confirm all things. So you know that everything is about accuracy and everything be done decently and everything should be done orderly. And you should have all your receipts, for, you know what I mean, lack of a better phrase. Now he said that my river, and I made it for myself. You heard that verbatim, the same quote. He said, but I will put hooks in your jaws and cause the fish of thy rivers to stick to thy scales, and bring thee up from out of the rivers, and all thy fish of thy rivers shall stick unto thy scales. And I will leave thee thrown into the wilderness, thee and all the fish of thy rivers, and thou shalt fall upon the open fields, and thou shalt not be brought together, nor gathered. And I have brought thee for meat to the beasts of the fields and to the fowls of the earths of heaven. You want to know when this prophecy happened? This is when this prophecy happened. Wasn't going to get into that, but I'll get into it anyway. Wasn't going to get into that, but I'll get into it anyway. Right? Let's go back to home. Right? Let's go back. Matter of fact, let's just go cut to the chase. All right, let's go to where we were talking about. Let's see where I can go specifically. All right, I got you. Oop. A devastating tsunami. All right. Tsunami hits. A powerful earthquake off the coast of Greece causes a tsunami that devastates the city of Alexandria. That's the capital at that point, named after Alexander the Great, who I think was the devil as well. Although there were no measuring tools at the time, scientists now estimate that the quake was actually 2 tremors in session, the largest of which is thought to have had a magnitude of an 8.0. Can't even fathom that. It said the quake centered near the plate boundary of the Hellenic Arc and quickly sent a wall of water across the Mediterranean Sea toward the Egyptian coast. Ships in the harbor of Alexandria were overturned as the water near the coast receded suddenly. And reports indicate that many people rushed out to loot the hapless ships. And a tsunami wave then rushed in and carried the ships over the seawalls, landing many on top of buildings. Alexandria, approximately 5,000 people lost their lives and 50,000 homes were destroyed. And the surrounding villages and towns suffered an even greater destruction. Many were virtually wiped off the map. Outside the city, 45,000 people were killed. In addition, the inundation of salt water rendered the farmland useless for years. Evidence indicates that the area's shoreline was permanently changed by the disaster. Slowly but steadily, the buildings of Alexandria's royal quarter were overtaken by the sea following the tsunami. It wasn't until 1995 that archaeologists discovered the ruins of the old city off the coast of present-day Alexandria. Huh? Let me see if they talk about Alexandria. Where was the Wikipedia one? Because I want one. All right, well, let's see if that did it. Let's expand that a little bit because I know that's kind of small. He said it was 8.5 and this one or higher. It was an undersea earthquake. And he said it caused widespread destruction in central and southern diocese of Macedonia, modern Greece, Africa, Proconsolares, northern Libya, Egypt, Cyprus, Sicily, Hispania, Spain. This was judgment. On Crete, nearly all towns were destroyed. The earthquake followed by a tsunami which devastated the southern and eastern coast of the Mediterranean. So the earthquake destroyed these, and the tsunami destroyed them, killing thousands and hurling ships 3 miles inland. The quake left a deep impression on the late antique mind. Numerous writers of the time referred to the event in their works. And where he talks about the fish were thrown all on the landscape, where he talks about, I'm going to bring your scales up in there. We're not going to get into that, but you get the picture. There's a lot of people, if you want to study that for yourself, Look into it, and they'll get into it to detail to where you'll see that happen. You'll see that happened. But anyway, he's saying that, and all inhabitants of Egypt shall know that I am the Elohim, because they have been a staff of reed to the house of Israel. And when they took hold of thee by the hand, thou didst break and rent or tore all their shoulder. And when they leaned upon thou breakest, and madest all their loins to be at a stand. He said, therefore saith the Elohim, behold, I will bring a sword upon thee, and cut off man and beast out of thee. And the land of Egypt shall be desolate and waste. And they shall know that I am the Elohim, because he had said, the river is mine, and I have made it. Therefore, behold, I am against thee and against thy rivers, and I will make the land of Egypt utterly waste and desolate, from the tower of Cyrene even to the border of Ethiopia. And can nobody tell me that ain't come to pass? Huh? He tells you he's going to make you a base nation. He said, I will bring the captivity of Egypt and cause them to return into the land of Pathros, into the land of their habitation, and there they shall be a base kingdom. How they are today. So if they were so wise and they were so daggone pious and, I can say supernatural, what's the word, the folklore that they had, mythological, where they were gods and they were so otherworldly and they had all of this esoteric power and all this other crap. Why didn't they see their own demise? Why weren't they wise enough to see that their destruction was etched in stone? Because there today, they are a base kingdom. They're letting Israel run amok on them. They let America and England and all of France, everybody had their shot at them. They got no power to stand on their own against anybody. And Saudi Arabia controls them of the Arab nations in terms of Muslims and Islam. And it shall be the basest of nations, neither shall it exalt itself any more. For I will diminish them, and they shall no more rule over the nations. So you enamored with a memory, fascinated by historical, antique, actually just, mythology. Stuff that happened that was lore at this time, but now it's a reality that you can be enamored with it and you can get in love with your imagination and your imaginary Egypt, because that's all it is. It's in your imagination. And I done showed you all of the evidence that nation is nowhere near what they presented as. Every nation went in there, even all of the latest was, Napoleon, then World War I, World War II. Egypt has always been in the way. They're most highs like, y'all ain't never rising. And everybody that come over here thinking that y'all gonna rise and y'all can rule from here is because of the commemoration. You gotta remember, he calls them that. Look at this, and I think it's 28. I think it's 28. He says this way, he says, thus saith the Elohim, is right where we were. We said the king of Egypt, the great dragon. Dragons always used to symbolize Satan and the devil, the order of those seven heads, who were the seven fallen angels that ruled over those fallen angels of Mount Hermon that corrupted the earth. That's why the Most High is like, when I shut it down, it's shut down. Well, anyway, I'm going to end that here and let y'all know, for you know not what you worship. But these are not the days to be all lost out in left field. Trust me. And we're going to get into that in our next video. Next video, we're going to get into prophecy concerning the land of Israel and our deliverance. And with that, I'll say shalom. Thank you for listening.